Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is that time of week where we have a guest join us, and our guest, who I realize now I have known for 15 years at this point. Yeah, he was making random Duke hating videos on the internet, and I was freelance writing, and somehow we came together. And then a couple years later, we were in a documentary together about Duke, of all things, Duke and UNC. And now he is a co-host of the morning show at Hot 97. You can also find him on the Wrestling Show. His name is Peter Rosenberg. Peter, what's going on?
Yo, Bo, what's poppin', man? Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, dude, all good. Like, I really said when Krzyzewski retired, I was like, wait a minute. I have known Peter now for 15 years.
Yeah, I know. I had thoughts about that. I was thinking about his retirement, too. It's truly the end of an era. And I was like, what a long time ago it was. Like, kids these days wouldn't even know anything about the Maryland-Duke rivalry. It was a totally different time in life.
Yeah, and you guys really hate them a lot. Like, I was trying to explain to people on Twitter that UNC fans do not hate Duke the most. Maryland fans hate Duke the most. And that's just because you guys have no respect for anything or anyone. And that became like the ultimate thing to have no respect for, and him and everybody else. Like, y'all are different.
Oh, I agree. There was something going on at that time, man. I guess it was right around the time Maryland started believing that we were something. Like we were actually a team that could play. You know, we had like the little tease with the Steve Francis team, and then they started really believing they could compete with Duke. And then over like a 4-year period, we were like the only team that beat Duke with any regularity. So the level of hatred, though, although be fair, they made it very easy to hate them. I mean, they were
yeah. Don't get me wrong.
They were detestable.
No. Everybody else hated Duke too. You guys just did it with like your own particular and unique fervor, and y'all hate everybody else too. It just happened that there was just, some actual basketball behind it with Duke.
And our fans were nasty. Like, it wasn't organized. It wasn't just chanting. It was throwing things. Like, I was thinking about that last week too, with what everyone was saying about how rowdy fans are right now and what's going on and what does this say about society and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying I don't think any of those things are unreasonable conversations to have. They're all reasonable. But I was thinking, please don't bring up Maryland, because when I was there, they were throwing bottles at family members. Like, it was not a game at all.
Well, there's the all-time classic moment where it was a Maryland-Duke game. I think it was J.J. Redick's senior year, so 06, and they start with the pan to the camera. And I don't know who was asleep at the wheel at ESPN and did not realize that everyone in the student section, yes, that was a yellow shirt with red writing because, it's Maryland and those are the colors, but that says Duke on it. Like, they're not even being cheeky about it. They're not being cute. It says Duke. And it was on television, like, oh, wait a minute. Bring that down.
Oh, what a time. And it's funny because I missed a lot of great experiences because of radio, which I'm sure you can relate to. But I also stayed at Maryland for an extra year because I worked so much that I couldn't get my credits done. And that extra year that I stayed at Maryland, 2002 championship. So I got to be a part of, honestly, that in a lot of ways, that's the greatest sports kind of win as a fan of my life, was Maryland winning while I was there.
Yeah, and I do have to stop here. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure you were working plenty, but 5 years is called the 5-year party plan. Like, I definitely believe that you were putting in your grind and you were putting in your work. Don't get me wrong, but people like, I took 5 years because I was working so much. Oh, you was putting in work, I'm sure.
No, but want to know the craziest part? How about this? When I went to college, I didn't drink or smoke. I did nothing. I really was a bore. Like, I'm not saying I didn't go out. I'm not saying I didn't do anything fun. But what I'm saying is I wish the version was because I was also just having such a good time. But no, I was really – now, listen, the bigger truth is that if you want to say it wasn't just work, it was partying. No, it wasn't just work. It was also laziness. I was only going to take so many credits. I mean, let's – like, once it got up to 14, I'm like, I'm not an 18 credit kind of guy.
Like, once you got behind, you were like, okay, we're just behind.
Yeah, this is it. I still take 12 credits a semester, 13 credits. I'm not a, you knew those people who had 17 credits, 19 credits. I was like, this is nuts. But that was, I mean, when you win, when your college team wins and you're at the college at that time, not some like fat alumnus 30 years later wearing the shirt, still going to tailgate at the game. When you're actually there in the moment as a student, man, that was a high level win. That was high.
Yeah, I was in grad school when Carolina won the championship in 05. And that was close enough, right? Like, it definitely was not the same thing for me that it was for the undergrads. Like, they were indoctrinated. Like, grad school was kind of like you worked there. But, it's cool when good things happen at the job, right? Like you go with it. It was definitely fun. Like, I watched it at the Dean Dome. And I tell you, that night on Franklin Street, the one thing that I will remember is if you wanted it, it was there. It was like if you couldn't make it work after winning the national championship, you were just never going to make it work.
You mean even people who had no business making it work made it work?
Yeah. Everybody's like, yo, there's only one way for this night to end properly. When that is the thought of everyone who's there, there's going to be a series of colossally bad decisions, right? Also fueled by alcohol, but the willingness to settle for the moment was higher probably than it had ever been for a whole lot of people.
And God bless those people who had someone who was just willing to lower their standards in the moment.
I mean, honestly, without that, many of us would not be here. And by
You know
us,
what?
I mean y'all, but still. Just want to be clear. Like, I just kind of had to.
No, there were a lot of women who settled or just said, you know what? Okay, this will work. And that's the reason we're here today.
Yeah. You never know how it's going to start.
I feel that way about my mom. I mean, I love my dad. He's a great guy, but he had no business with my mom.
Yeah, like my dad is like, he doesn't say it out loud, but he's still kind of like, I really don't know how I pulled this off. But here I am.
All these years later.
Yeah, still chilling. So maybe I am us, right? Like, there it goes, man. But you talk about the grind, though, in school, but you definitely are on the grind because you are one of these I am in a wide range of places people, right? Now, that's like 4 different reasons why somebody might know who you are. And now you got an album out here in these streets, right? I put it up Spotify. Spotify's like, yo, that new Peter Rosenberg and Ghostface Killer is out. You might want to check this out.
Yeah, this is it's funny too. It's a little out of order, I realize now. It's sort of like how I feel about Clubhouse on the internet. Like, Clubhouse is a technology that should have first existed like maybe after AOL chat rooms, but instead it came out now. And I'm like, why does anyone need this? For my album feels like it probably should have been something I tried to do like when I first started building my name at Hot 97, but frankly, wouldn't have had the know-how to do it. Wouldn't have had the relationships to get it done. And it worked really nicely because, to your point, I'm in so many worlds, right? But in all of those worlds, man, I work for someone. Like, a lot of people will, oh, Rosenberg, what's it like to be like an impresario? You're a mogul. I'm like, no, moguls hire people. Moguls I'm like, a worker bee. Okay?
Like, I got a bunch of jobs.
I'm responsible to different people at all different parts of my day. I'm not downplaying how much I love the work that I do. However, it's nice. The project is the only thing in my life that I was the full boss of. Like, I was the one who made the decisions on every single thing. And with that became annoyances and difficulties. But I enjoyed that in this world. I don't know if I would actually enjoy it in radio as much as I always thought I would. I think when push comes to shove, I am actually more of a second chair guy than I realized, just because of the way I like to live my life and the level of responsibility I want to have. But when it came to this, I enjoyed getting to be the shot caller on everything. And then, of course, I mean, Bo, I'm not going to lie, when you see that everyone loves it, it makes you feel a lot better about it being you were the one who made the decisions.
Now, you talk about the know-how to make this happen. What was there to know how to do in putting together the album? And just so everybody knows, the album is entitled Real Late. Single out with Ghostface Killers. Got Westside Gun on it, Styles P, Rock Marciano, Method Man, Willie the Kid, whole bunch of people on here, man. So, like, what was there to know?
So that's a great question, because I mean, literally the only negative tweets, I haven't done this in years, but because of this album, I've done a whole lot of Twitter searching my name to see what people are saying. I don't do that about radio anymore. I don't want people's opinions on how much they hate me about what I said about this thing or that. But when it came to the album, I wanted to search and see like what were people's actual reactions. And I'll tell you right now, one thing I saw, the only negative thing I kept seeing with any regularity was, what does he even do? You know, what does it even mean to put together an album? And I think part of that is that DJ Khaled had so much success and people were so annoyed by him yelling on songs that they decided that's the only thing he does. And I don't even yell on songs, so I didn't do anything. Like there's just nothing. So basically the process is like this. I sat down, decided I wanted to make a project with like a mix of emerging artists and also like, you know, other artists who I'm passionate about or I have relationships with who have been in the game for a long time. So I went out, I found a bunch of producers who I liked. My boy Mark Rosado, who I know from him, he's actually a vintage clothes dealer who's just very tied into hip hop and has a great ear. He's sort of become my de facto A&R over the last couple of years, and he would send me beat packs, as they're known, from producers, and I would go through these packs of beats, and I would pull out the ones that interested me, find out their availability, and then you get to sit down and, you know, sort of live a little bit of a dream. Is kind of like, who would sound good on this? Who would sound good on this? And then start targeting people, fail with some, move on to others. And then you get in the process of trying to nag those people and make sure you get the stuff recorded, get people to send you vocals. And then you start putting the pieces together. You know, who goes where? Oh, someone shorted us a couple bars here. What should we do there? Oh, there's a mess up here. They never really fixed it. We got to find a way to cover it. Well, I'm not going to get Ghostface. You know, Ghostface's verse is 14 bars. And I talked to him the other day, which was a great moment. He called me Friday night, the night the album came out. And let me be clear, Bo, I don't talk to Ghostface every day. I don't want this to seem like a stunt, like I've gotten used to hearing from Ghostface. And for guys of me and your cloth, when it comes to hip hop, like talking to Ghostface, it'll always be a thing. Like, it's Ghostface. And he hit me Friday night, and I hadn't talked to him on the phone, honestly, the entire project. Like, I was dealing with his man, Sean Wiggs. I was talking to Sean Wiggs about the record. Ghost just did it, and that was it. And Ghost called me Friday night, and man, I still have such imposter syndrome. I answered the phone like he's gonna be like, man, why the f you put me on this bullshit? Or, yo, where's the paperwork? I didn't know what it was going to be. And it was a congratulatory call saying he loved the project and he was happy to be on it. And he was like, yo, I didn't know that I shorted you 2 bars. Yo, I owe you 2 bars, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Ghost, once I got to 14, I knew I wasn't going to get you to record another 2 before the project got done. So that ended up being a little thing that made us get creative about how that song, like, if you listen, the way each verse ends, I kill the beat off completely, and it kind of like there's like an echo sound, and then the verses come back in. That was sort of to create a necessary space because of the way Ghostface's verse ends. So when you listen to it, honestly, it just sounds hard. Like, you wouldn't really think much of it. But at the time, you're trying to put the pieces together, and you're like, this is awesome. Why doesn't it sound right? And I guess that's the piece that the average person who's not that into music wouldn't understand. Is like I saw a tweet yesterday. Yo, Raekwon and Method Man on a song. Really hard to make that good. It's like, well, hey, listen, I would say this. Think of all the artists you love in your life. Go search for them on whatever your streaming platform is. You will find songs that they have been on that you were like, I never really checked for this song.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock to the artist. It's a knock to who put the songs together. Yeah. So it's a process. It's a thing to do to get these things to sound like a complete body of work and not just random loose features.
And also, they've all done bad songs. They just don't let us hear them. You know what I mean? Like one thing we always have to remember about all of these is we get their best. Like when the cats are like, yo, I recorded 100 songs for my album. They did not record no 100 bangers. If they had, they would have put out a 100-track album. It would have been some kind of box set or anything else. No, man, we get their best. By the way, fun fact, I went to college with Willie the Kid.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I had to look that up as we were here because, like, it's one of those where I haven't seen him since college. So, like, I think I follow him on Twitter and I see stuff pop up, but I'm like, I think that's the same person, but I'm not. But he works with Don, right? With Don and with Drama.
He did.
Yeah.
That's how he started with them. Yes.
Right. All went to college at the same time.
Yo, that is crazy. And little known fact, I didn't realize this when I got him on the record, but Willie the Kid is also La the Dark Man's brother. Law the Dark
I did
Man.
not know that.
Yeah, Law the Dark Man was an early Wu-Tang affiliate. So I wanted Willie the Kid on the song anyway. And then it just turned out he was actually blood related to a Wu-Tang affiliate. So I had a couple moments like that where I was like, oh, the karma's right for this. Like this is falling into place. But so that's basically what the whole thing is. And then after you put the songs together and do the, scratches or samples or, add little accoutrement to it, then I had to get it mixed, and you have a back and forth with the mixer, my boy Kenny, who mixed it. That's like a constant conversation about how you want it to sound and little details. And then after that, you get to sequencing the whole thing, which is such a slept on until you make an album. The amount of thought, or actually, I shouldn't say that because you're a nerd like me. Unless you're a big nerd, you don't spend a lot of time thinking about sequencing.
Oh, no, I would quit my job to go sequence for other people. I would quit this all right now if I could just sequence people's records all day.
And by the way, for fun, in a few weeks after you've sat with the album, you should hit me back with how you would have sequenced it. Because me and my buddy who produced 3 songs on the project, we disagreed about the sequencing. In the end, he ended up really happy with what I did. But the way he did it was more like super up tempo the front half, then slowed down the whole back half. Whereas I went a little back and forth, and it slows down at the end. But I didn't want to put all the bangers up front because I didn't want everyone to go, oh, I just got 5 hard songs in a row. I don't even need to listen to the back half. I wanted it to play out where people will let the whole thing play, especially because it's less than 40 minutes. So it's a very listenable, complete album if sequenced the right way. So, and that's the last real piece of it. And then my girlfriend shot the cover art. I had a terrible idea for the album cover. I was going to do a collage of photos that were like all related to me. And she was like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's a great way to sell this West Side Gun album. This white dude all over the place.
And other white people.
Right.
She was like, why do you think people just want pictures of your white friends from high school? I was like, because this was the build up to my life. So I'll have people from different stages in my life. She was like, babe, no one's going to want to share that. Like, that's not a shareable thing. And I was like, I mean, she's literally, she's at Miss Hatton on Instagram. She's an incredible photographer. She hangs out of helicopters and takes pictures of New York. And I was like, wait a second, you have any good nighttime pictures? She was like, yeah. So that album cover and the cover really is, I love it. It feels like what the album is. It feels late night New York. So I think we ended up getting it right.
No, man, that's dope stuff. And the record is dope. And the people that you have on it, like the sound, I think is interesting because we're in a place where, like, I was talking to some cats that were in their late 20s about the Griselda dudes, because I have this thing that happens from time to time. Like, I was way late on Nipsey Hussle because I didn't like his name. I was like, damn, you stopped there? I felt like you could have come up with something a little bit better, right? And then I was like, damn, I really let this keep me out of here. The Griselda dudes, I was just like, okay, Griselda, so we're doing this cocaine thing again. Like, I was just kind of tuned out on cocaine. And then I got in and was like, oh, sorry, misunderstood. Okay, this bangs, right? But it's a very... for us, I guess what we would call kind of a neoclassical sort of sound, right? Like, it very much so goes to a mid-90s kind of like boot camp, beat miners, Wu-Tang, Gravediggers kind of place. And I realized them cats in their early 20s, they think these dudes invented it. Like, this is the first time that they had been exposed to this sound. And so a lot of them really had no idea that this harkens back to something. So, like, when I look at the credits on this, I'm like, okay, so we got West Side Gun and we got the Wu. It's like, okay, it is so cool to me now that sound is back in any sort of way, that people are the idea that people can still get down with that. It's kind of reassuring for me.
I agree. And, the one part that annoys me is that a lot of people who operate sort of in the commercial space don't know that there's a whole thing going on and people are spending, like, they don't know that the Griselda guys are rich off of doing real rap. Like, they've never made a radio record at all. And, like, West Side Gun owns homes in, like, more places than I visit. Like, they're not putting it together. So, like, even when I did Drink Champs, Nori, who obviously is an absolute legend and made one of the most iconic underground gangster-ass albums of all time in the War Report, he ended up in this very commercial space because that's where his life took you. And at that point in time, in order to be rich in music, he couldn't have made another War Report. He had to keep going and end up getting to Super Thug and eventually Nothing and the reggaeton and all the things that he did. So when he talked about my album, it was unintentionally dismissive, and I wasn't offended. I just don't agree. I don't think people are thinking through all the way. He's like, yeah, it sounds so dirty. People like they use the word dusty or broke and I'm like, no, guys, this music's selling. And the beautiful thing is, in this era, guess what? It doesn't have to sell to a gazillion people to make money because you're not paying back a record label. It just has to stream to the people who want it. And those people, there are a lot of artists right now who are popular and making money. And yes, they couldn't fill a 10,000 seat arena, but guess what? They don't have to. No. And so I think people are missing that. And that was a process for me to see. I was like, oh, some of y'all don't realize that this album, some of these artists are a big deal in their own world. It's just an interesting thing to me. And I think some people our age don't quite get that, but it is reassuring when you realize not only is that music being made, but guess what? Some of those artists that we liked back in the day, these guys today are doing way better financially because of the system.
Yeah. It's selling tickets and it's selling merch because nobody's really selling records, right? That day has passed. People are buying subscriptions to services that then pay the artist pennies. And we feel great because we get the service, although they're going to jack these prices up on us soon. Just you watch, right? Just you look around. But
probably.
But if you can sell tickets, you can sell merch. There's really nothing left to discuss at that point, right? Like that's what's going to be able to get you in there. And then that's got to be really freeing for a lot of cats because now you can just make music rather than trying to make music for strangers. You're making music for your friends because that becomes like the hardest part for a lot of people and where people go wrong, right? Like you take a cat like Q-Tip. When he did the Viber thing, Breathe and Stop, both of which are bangers, but it was an introduction to strangers, it felt like, and it didn't work for anybody. Like, you realize how wild it is? The Viber thing was what it was, but that album, nobody really bought it.
It's funny that album actually has like 7, maybe, just absolute awesome songs. And yeah, the Q-Tip album is an interesting project. That's something I've never really spoken to him that much about, which it's an interesting time because you're right. He was trying to make sure everyone knew who he was, even though people did. It was like a broader introduction. And as a result, you go with that commercial record. And even though people liked it on the radio, it didn't translate to then people understanding the album, which was filled with Jay Dilla beats still.
Right. But it was Q-Tip in a fur coat with no shirt on the cover.
That's what I was thinking about.
And that's what, and I just think that people were like, nah, we don't really know you. And it's funny because the people that were like most hardcore on Tribe and hardcore on him, they still went with the album. It was those people they had picked up along the way who were like, no, that's not what we're here for from you, you know? And so these other cats don't ever have to roll the dice on doing something like that at this point.
Yeah, no, they're not. I can't imagine they're going to. Like, you know, everyone talks about like, oh, Drake supposedly has a feature with Benny. I'm like, well, listen, that would be great for Benny. He would get his streams up. That would be awesome. He doesn't need it. He doesn't have to sit around waiting for it to happen. And that wasn't even the same thing just 7 or 8 years ago. I remember really when Joey Badass came out. So I was maybe 8, 9 years ago, whatever it is. I really hoped that Drake would feature him on something. And like, if you remember when Action Bronson's first album came out, he had that song Acting Crazy. You remember that joint produced by 40? And he had this record produced by 40 that sounded like a Drake smash, except it was hard. Like it would have been one of those random Drake releases that just comes out on the internet. It was like that. And I remember thinking, man, if Bronson could get the Drake feature, he'd be out of here. Just 8 years ago to now, that's not the case anymore. I wouldn't even think about you need a feature. I would just think people have now adapted to how this whole thing operates between streaming and doing limited merchandise and things of that nature. And you don't need to beg for a feature from some huge artist to get on. You can just operate in your space and make great music. And I mean, listen, I'm hopeful for me that this is something that I can continue to pursue. And I haven't even released the merch yet to see how this stuff plays out, you know, but to me, I don't know. Do I want to wake up and talk about what hip hop gossip there is when I'm 50. I don't know, but I know I might still want to curate albums.
Right.
And if I do it well, your age doesn't really matter. You can kind of keep doing it for as long as you want to do it, as long as you're putting out good product. And it's an appealing option for those of us who never decided that like we had to just suck it up and only listen to commercial music.
Right. Now, let me ask you this about putting the album together. You talk about not wanting to call Ghost and get them to do those 2 bars. Was there anybody that you had to call up and be like, hey, man, this one isn't really up to snuff?
There was only 2 instances. One cat whose name I won't mention, who I like. He's very underground. Like I don't think you would know who he was. He's pretty underground. But I like him. And he was going to be on it because he was one of the first cats of this sort of subgenre that I was playing. And yeah, he sent me a verse and I was like, this isn't it. And then he tried to redo it and it still wasn't it. And I was like, we'll just figure this out down the line. You're not here. You're trying to do way too much. He was trying to like double time and really overwrap a beat that I was like, this is not that. So I said, let's just come back around to it. And then there's one verse on the album that was changed because it was just it was one line that was just so violent to me. I didn't feel it. I just couldn't put it on my album.
Your conscience couldn't let it go.
It didn't seem, I had a moral qualm with it being on my album. You know, being that my name was the name attached to it, I felt a way about having that image sort of out there. I was just like, this isn't it. And I hit him back and he was great and was like, yo, I get it. I got you. Let's redo it.
He knew it. Look, Aaron, every now and then we all try to sneak something past, right? Like when I'm doing Highly Questionable, I know it's taped. I know they can edit. Every now and then I'm gonna try to get something past you.
Right,
like, okay, if you let it roll, I'm down to do this. I understand that you might not be down. Me, myself, personally, I'm cool with it. You're going to have to make that decision.
Yeah, and exactly. In this case, it's the rare situation where I can make a call like that myself. So I was like, let's just change this. And because I was thinking about it too much. I was like, if I'm going to be sitting there actually thinking about it, I think we should just change it. I was already thinking about like muting words and and I'm like, if I'm thinking about muting curses, now I'm trying to edit the artist. I can't do that. I'd rather have you just make it a line that we're all comfortable with. And we did that.
All good. Now we'll switch gears a little bit. Keeps offers a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair. I've got hair. I like hair. I didn't have hair for a while. It's pretty cool when you got it, I must admit. Now, convenient virtual doctor consultations and medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months. You don't have to leave your home to get Keeps. It's low cost. Treatments start at just $10 per month and Keeps offer generic versions. They've got discreet packaging and proven results. Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors. Prevention is key. Treatment can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast. Keeps helps men keep their hair and prevent hair loss. If you're already entirely bald, Keeps is not the right solution. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/daily to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/daily to get your first month free. keeps.com/daily. If you're a business owner who's hiring, you probably face a lot of challenges when it comes to finding the right person for your role. Not enough applicants with the right skills or experience, not knowing where to post your job to reach the right people. That's why hiring can feel like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/Bomani. When you post a job on ZipRecruiter, it gets sent out to over 100 top job sites with one click. Then, ZipRecruiter's matching technology finds people with the right skills and experience for your job and actively invites them to apply. In fact, ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. It's no wonder over 2.3 million businesses have come to ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. So while other companies overwhelm you with way too many options, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at this web address, ZipRecruiter.com/Bomani. Once again, remember to go to this unique place, ZipRecruiter.com/BOMANI. ZipRecruiter, smartest way to hire. It's been a very interesting year and change in the world. And so what's it like being the white dude on the Hot 97 morning show in this year of upheaval?
It's a little different, I'd say, than the previous decade and change. I feel, I had already had these moments on the show over the years where I had really expressed myself passionately on social justice issues or police brutality issues. In like 2017, I don't know what year it was, maybe 16, 17, I had like a viral moment because I screamed at a cop on the radio.
Right.
I had moments like that. I was outspoken, and it's kind of always been part of my personality. I feel very passionately about how bad racism is in this country. I have always felt that way. When I got on Hot, I felt really strongly about homophobia. It created uncomfortable conversations. I'll tell you right now, the listening audience on Hot 97 in 2007 with regard to homosexuality is very different than 2021. It's been a long 14 years. And I had those conversations too. So these issues have always been sort of part of my thought process as a person. It's kind of how I was raised by some hippies, Mm-hmm. But this year, I sort of learned the art of stepping back. I wasn't in a space where my voice had to be heard enough because no one was talking about it. Right. I have a black co-host who is speaking about it passionately every day. Now, I weighed in and I would jump in and throw in my, and I would occasionally
That's right.
add some color or nuance. But by and large, I learned a little bit like, when is it your time where people will want to hear from you? And when is it like, all right, white boy, we got this? and I'll tell you, Bomani, it is the most underappreciated art form that I have in my life. It's a tap dance. It's a ballet that is sort of inexplicable. And then remember, as you know, I then would go on the K show.
Yes. With Michael K, for those who don't know, Peter's co-host with Michael K and Don LaGreca on ESPN Radio in New York in the afternoons.
And that is a very not straight ahead. It's a funny ass show, but it is a pretty white bread, three white guys talking sports in New York. Now, listen, I work with great co-hosts who are very progressive, and we were always on the same page. But that doesn't mean, or not always, we are mostly on the same page. That doesn't mean that prior to my arrival, they had always been outspoken on these things. Because Guess what? 5 years ago, most white people weren't very outspoken on these things.
Right.
So I then transitioned to the afternoon show, where I not only have to walk this line of ESPN and how they feel, but also the fact that my audience there is very split. So while in the morning I have to watch my P's and Q's to not overstep and make black people hate me and tell me to shut up, now I'm taking all of my passionately anti-racism views, Black Lives Matter sticker on my laptop, take that to the afternoon show where I'm on TV and literally at times pissing people off with the Black Lives Matter sticker on the laptop, and having those conversations where the right-wingers hate me. I'm like my name elicits like disgust. And by the way, listen, it's ESPN. It's not like I was going all the way in.
Right.
I was being delicate. I was simply pointing out that George Floyd got murdered. I wasn't doing anything crazy. But there's a very long way of saying, bro, it was an interesting year with a lot of trying to do the right thing, speak the views that are really important to me while not overstepping when I'm on Hot 97 and not understepping when I'm on ESPN, and making sure I say enough. Because on ESPN, interestingly enough, I go from the mornings where I'm the white guy who annoys people at times to on ESPN in the afternoons, I have a lot of black listeners who feel that I'm the one who's going to represent their thoughts and feelings on the show.
Right.
So it was a lot of dancing.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing you and I talked about was, and it was something I had never really considered, and it made me laugh, but it was something to it, which is like, as black people, we often feel like with white folks, you can build up all the equity in the world as, hey, we cool, we this, we that, whatever it is. One thing happened, whatever it is, and now the white folks have turned on you forever. And being the white dude on the Black Morning Show, man, you could be out here red, black, and greening it up. You better not do that. Hold on the wrong thing, partner. It's a wrap for you.
Yep. That's the thing. Like, listen, I'm never going to have, and nor do I ever want, the people who hate me in the afternoon. I'm good. The harder part is on the morning show, because there might be some people you really like and may really like you. And I don't want to lose those people by saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, where it's like, it could be as simple as, like, let's say you come in one morning, right? And there's a yet another police shooting video. And Ebro and I see it in different ways, right? I'm just making this up. It didn't really happen that I can recall. And Ebro sees it one way. And then in that moment, I decide to go, well, I could see how this was a hard situation for that cop. He showed up, and just that moment, because it's my voice being the one to say it and opposing Ebro, that could really paint me in a light that's terrible, and not an indicator of how I feel about these situations. So it's spots like that you learn, like, you know what, maybe on this one, because listen, we've all watched these videos and we have a different rating scale. There's the one that you're like, this is the most egregious thing I've ever seen. This is just regular, disgusting police behavior. And then there's some at the bottom where you're like, this is probably really bad, but there's at least a conversation to be had about nuance here. And maybe on those ones, I just lay out. I just kind of lay out. It's not me pointing out the nuance is not useful. I'm not going to be doing anything that's going to change people's minds. I'm just going to make them think that I'm not on their side, which I absolutely am.
Yeah, the great Bill Withers line, it don't do too much good to be talking, brother, when ain't nobody listening, right? Like, I do, and as someone who, like, prides himself on the ability to offer nuance and come up in those times, I also have to acknowledge myself that sometimes it's a bit masturbatory, right? It's like everybody is saying this, so I'm going to point this thing. You see, and sometimes they're like, man, if you don't take
here's a question for you, though.
to the crib.
Even with you being a black man in media,
mm-hmm.
Let's say there was a video like that, right, where you looked at it and you didn't see it the way it appeared most of Black Twitter saw it,
mm-hmm.
would you feel comfortable trying to go out and say that on Twitter with any nuance, or would you lay off and say, I don't even feel like dealing with this?
Well, I tell you, I've been sitting out all those shootings for years at this point. And the reason I sat them out is because these individual observations within the sample don't matter, right? Like, the sample has clear tendencies that matter, and litigating one is not going to change my overall thing, right? So I'm just kind of like, all right, y'all got them all. And I got tired of watching people get killed. But it was just kind of like, okay, y'all got them all. Now, with a police shooting, if there's one that goes in where I look at it and be like, I can see how it was, I'll be honest, by and large, Black folks, when they see those, kind of like, because we know we can't take on every fight, and we know we got to take on fights that are winners, because if the fight's a loser, we gonna wind up having a problem, right?
I mean, you might have one even if the fight's a winner, you're still gonna have a problem.
Yeah, exactly, right? But yeah, no, if there's one that involves some level of nuance, somebody else can make that point. You don't need me for that. But at this point, I don't feel like you need me to say that the cops killing people is bad either.
That's a really interesting point. That's one of the things I love talking about you, is that you add sort of statistical evidence into everything, because you're right. Getting into the nuance of one individual case, that's what the idiots on the other side do.
Yeah.
That's why I get in these screaming fights with people. Do you know? Do you know? You must get this way more than I do. How much do you love when the racists tweet you just videos of Black people doing bad things?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, look at this. What do you have to say about that? Yeah. I'm like, I don't understand what the argument is. You're showing me two civilians who are assholes doing something terrible. I'm trying to have a conversation about police brutality. Right. Why are you just sending me reckless crime videos?
Yeah, but you know what happened with me? And I talk about it a little bit, but not too much, right? But really, I can definitely draw a line to like 5 years ago, where I stopped talking about important things on Twitter. And what had happened was the Trump thing was like building and it was going on. But a big thing that went down was I had a situation once where I looked and I saw a bot reply to something I said and a bot reply to the bot that replied. And I was just like, wait a minute, I'm on a list now. Like it became very clear to me that I could talk about whatever this thing was. And there were all these accounts that would jump on it, no matter how benign I was being. And I used to be the guy that would retweet them like, oh, look at these fools. And then I felt like they were trying to play me. Right? Like I was like, oh, so what happens is I talk about it and then these bots use it to gin up all this and then use it to rile up these other people who are not actually listening. And I was like, wait a minute, am I actually doing anything here anymore? Because there was a time where I did believe that I was doing something. Like I really felt like my voice on that platform was important and was having an effect. And then I realized, nah, it's being used against me. And then when Trump happened, I was like, oh, there's no nuance that I can offer you about any of this stuff because it's obvious now. Like you used to kind of need me to explain what was going on about some of these things. You don't need me to explain nothing now. It is right here. It is right in front of you. And I was like, the rest of y'all can have this because once I just figured out that there were not just bad faith actors, but there was obviously a measure of machinery involved in taking my good faith arguments and turning them into something else. And there were already so many, like, because I never was a screamer, but there's so many people just screaming in various ways online. And I was like, there's literally nothing good that I can do on this platform right now talking about any of this stuff.
So have you stuck with that? You do not weigh in on, quote, important issues. You keep it sports, music?
Maybe outside of sports, music a little bit. But yeah, no, I'm not talking, not on Twitter. Like it's not, and see what's interesting about it is I think that people like Twitter's become such a big deal and so ubiquitous that people feel like if you're not tweeting about it, you're not talking about it. I
know.
Or you're not doing anything about it. But that is not a safe place to discuss these things. You know, like I've had people create crazy troll accounts for me for literally the last 10 years. Like before that got to be a thing that, that was huge everywhere when people didn't even really know who I was. I've been doing spot hits on ESPN for a year and a half. I had people harassing me. I had people, getting on there. I had people harassing folks that like just replying to me, getting involved with that. And so I was just like, nah, I don't think I'm doing anything good here. And these clowns, right? Like they're the ones who engage it more. And I mean, I'm responsible for this. I did a lot of engaging of clowns way back, but I was just like, no, I am no longer helping. And I had to take my ego and pull it back and not say to the world, like me saying something, I don't have to say something to say that I said something. And I think a lot of people feel like they have to make sure that everybody knows that they said something.
I was getting it on my Instagram comments and Twitter. Why aren't you speaking about Israel and Palestine? First of all, how anyone has the gall to tell someone that they have to speak on this. Like, I just want to point out the basic anti-Semitism when you think a Jew has to talk on that.
Right.
Like, I'm American. If I said I don't give a damn, like I do give a damn. But if I said that, that would be my right. I'm not a citizen of Israel. Like, yes, Jews can actually move to Israel, but like, I don't live in Israel. I don't spend time there. So just the gall that you think you can just tell me I need to comment. And then second of all, I have commented. You just haven't listened to my radio shows to hear it or podcast. So I now have to give an Instagram. I need to put up I need to put up what you want me to say on Instagram or on Twitter, or it doesn't count that I spoke on it. And literally, it's funny, of course you laughed at it because of all these subjects. It's the most complex and nuanced you could ever try to get into. And you want me to do that in 140 characters?
It is my number one no sirree Bob topic. Because not only is it the most difficult you could argue and nuanced to talk about, it is the most likely one for you, particularly if you are not Jewish and do not know the terrain. It is the easiest way to lose your job.
Oh, right? Yeah. And people don't know the terrain. Bro, Jews don't even know the terrain.
That's what I'm saying. I don't. Like, that's a big thing about it is my rule is I'm not talking about it if I can't handle follow-up questions. And I personally, and look, I could probably do more reading and educate myself better to then be in a position. Like I have a macro level view on the issue, but I can't handle follow-up questions, which means I'm going to come out here and get fired behind this. And I do nobody no good being fired.
And it's crazy. So eventually I did say something on Twitter because like the anti-Semitic attacks were on the rise in New York. And at that point, I felt some sense of a responsibility to say something because the local community is being affected by it in this way. And I wanted to say, and still, listen, I gave a little statement on Twitter. I'm not saying anyone cared about it. I'm sure it's made some people say, it made both sides hate me. I mean, that's all that ever happens. Right. When you say something rational, reasoned, something that's rational, reasoned, and in the middle with nuance, you also, in the end, don't end up pleasing anyone. Because the people on both sides want you to, and this is not just Israel-Palestine, this is all issues, they want you to have a zero-sum game. And if you're someone like myself, I wish, to what degree is on some level to what you're like, because you're really good at this. If you're someone with nuance who doesn't just want to lay out the most broad stroke thing, that just doesn't play well these days. And by the way, doesn't play great for my career either. Like that's one thing about my career. I'm very pleased with where I've gone, but like I could have gone somewhere else had I decided to be a hot take machine. I'm just not a hot take machine. I cannot just jump out there, and God bless them. We have a lot that we work with in Bristol, okay, who just get on the air and saw the game last night and are going to say today either someone stinks or someone is the greatest of all time. I can't do that either, even with small issues, let alone the most important issues.
Yeah, no, that is, hey man, you got to live with whatever it is you say now, because that's a thing now about this day and age in particular that's a bit different is whatever you said can be easily captured and easily redistributed. And like, especially when you do radio, in a lot of ways, man, you're just saying what comes to your mind at a given point in time. Like it's a very spontaneous medium and they can get you there quick, right? No matter what it happens to be, like the level of care. And by the way, for like somebody like me, for example, I feel like the way that people receive and absorb my words, I have to be very responsible about them. Like as much as I might want to be like, hey, I'm just a dude talking. Not anymore, man. It's been a long time since I've been just a dude talking where I can just be like, well, I'm just allowed to have my, no, that's not what it is, right? Whether I like it or not, whether I think it should be that way, whether I think it's reasonable or not, there's a weight that comes with it. And I will vote for say nothing over say something that say nothing or say something and I don't know where it's about to go.
That's such a great point because so many of us have always gotten away with that. Like, I just on the radio talking. Now, listen, you can make the argument. You could say, hey, listen, I'm just a human being. And sometimes when you're talking live, you don't say things the way you'd exactly like to say it. But what you can't do is remove the gravitas of who you are once you've been in that for that long. I'm not going to re-bring it up because this is the last story I feel like bringing up. But there was a time several years ago where something happened, something really sad happened. And I was on the K show when this thing happened, and it was a hip hop thing. And I tried to mention what had happened because it was a big story. So even though it was a hip hop story, sometimes as that guy, if it happens in the middle of our show, I will say that it happened. So the audience that's there for me, it knows that I'm aware of it or I'm telling them about it. And in doing so, I ended up using like a colloquialism that was, to me, it didn't have the meaning. This isn't a racially based term. It was like a term of that people thought was me minimizing something important.
Right.
But in the moment at which I was saying it on this show, where it wasn't the focal point of the conversation, it was me trying to give a mention to something. I said this thing that to me was very throwaway. Someone else heard it. The next day repeats it publicly much louder to the audience that does care about it and makes it sound like I gave a grand statement in which I said this thought out thing, which clearly showed my disdain for someone.
Right.
It was literally the furthest thing from what I was trying to do. And bro, I had to live. I mean, I still get comments about it, but it was certainly a couple of weeks straight of just the people coming after you. And when it's about an artist, people don't let go, bro. Like, I think people don't realize what fanboys they are. I had someone coming at me yesterday, and one of the reasons he hates me is because, as he said it, I talked ish to Jay Electronica. I was like, I didn't know Jay Electronica was above conversation. Like, do you realize what a fan you are? That you're saying, like, he's a deity? And, like, no one, like, so once you have anything with an artist, there are certain people who love that artist who they treat you like you went after their God.
Yeah. Nah, man, it's a whole nother game, man. But look, This is my man, Peter Rosenberg. Check out his new album, Real Late. Lots of great features on it. Great photography, by the way, also on it. The record is dope. I recommend you check it out. Also, check out Peter, the morning show on Hot 97, the afternoon show with Michael K. and Don LaGreca on ESPN Radio. Did I leave anything out?
Listen, WWE pay-per-views, every
That's
kickoff
right.
show.
That's right. The wrestling. He is on the wrestling show also. That is correct. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this 3 times a week. Gabe Bassane handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Also, remember, follow The Right Time. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.